Welcome back. So let's start off with the security situation in Nigeria. Insecurity issues have been on the front burner of national discourse in Nigeria. Cases of killings, kidnapping, banditry are on the rise despite efforts by the government to bring the situation under control. And you know, before now, we're just talking about insurgency in the northeast. And now we have all of these issues before us. So to compound this already bad situation, two security bodies saddled with the responsibilities of ensuring utmost security are now trading blames over the killings of 3 policemen who were on a covert operation but mistaken for suspected kidnappers by soldiers in Taraba State. How can Nigeria get it right in terms of its security architecture? We have in the studio this morning security experts, both in our Lagos and Abuja studios. We'll start in our Lagos studios with Mr. Oladende Areyo. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We also have Umar Aliyu, is a security expert too. Thank you for being here. And in our Abuja studios, we have another security expert, Cecil Esekhaigwe. Thank you for joining us. Okay, let me start from Lagos. Captain Aliyu, so you saw what happened this week. What does it speak to you in terms of the security situation in the country?
It's cumbersome. Very trying times indeed, very unfortunate. What happened was avoidable. From my own perspective as a practitioner, if we were to do a post-mortem of what happened based on the facts or the details we have so far, I will believe there are gaps, and these gaps have to be mended. The gaps are such that they are being exploited not only by our adversaries, but the gaps are becoming retroactive to our own detriment as practitioners. If you do a post-mortem and look again, you'll be able to see that somewhere along the line, the two parties did not talk and communicate enough. And so those who should have been in the know were not in the know. Somehow they were not informed. And as a result, we have a tragedy on our hands. And I also want to use this opportunity to say something here. The investigation shouldn't be about trading blames now. Whether we have blames or no blames, 3 men are gone. And it has happened. It's already in the past, though no less significant. What we should be doing now is first and foremost for all involved to accept what has happened with regrets. And then we sit down and begin to see what we can do to ensure that this never happens again. This is one incident too much or frequent. We've had past incidents where you have blue on blue. What is blue on blue? Blue on blue is when friendly forces draw fire from each other because there was a gap somewhere and somebody didn't know something. So basically, what we should be doing now is what Matthew Seard calls black box thinking. And what is black box thinking? It's what the aviation people do when an aircraft falls. They go for the black box. And from the black box, they work to make sure that we don't get a repeat scenario. It's really very tragic indeed.
Mr. Rio, permit me to go to Abuja right now, and the reason I'm doing that is because the next question is about security, and it's about that particular scenario. General Esekhaigwe, I want to ask you, he has said that there was obviously some communication gap in that scenario, but the object of that encounter, which is the kidnapped kingpin, who was at the time of that incident restrained by handcuffs, that is now walking free, is a very big elephant in the room. It's a very big question that needs to be asked. There are certain procedures for sorting these things. How can we explain how the kidnap kingpin walked away from that incident free?
Well, at this juncture, I think the discordant tones from the police and the army, has actually blurred, any definite statement that can come in now. And that is why the wisdom of the president, they set up that panel of investigation to unravel, the circumstances surrounding that unfortunate incident. But the totality of it all is that we actually need a holistic security reform. In security sector reform, you will find out that there are delineations of responsibilities. What we are having here now is hybrid operation, a combination of so many types of forces in one singular operation. And that's why we have always called for the police to be properly equipped, because they are the first responders on internal security calculations. They should be well equipped, well trained, and to be able to do their job so that the military can go back out of the street, leave the street, and go and concentrate on their core responsibilities of the defense of the territorial integrity of this great country. A situation where you bring in the military, for internal security operations, to work with the police or to work with other security agencies without delineations of function, you're going to have all these incidences. In that security sector reform again, you are going to have what they call interagency cooperation properly defined. Like one of the speakers first said, in operations like this, you have what they call joint operation or center, if you have to work one or two agencies together, so that they're able to share intelligence, so that they're able to coordinate their operations. And what's a critical element you have to consider is what they call on need to know. So if you are going for a covert operation in another area where you have sister agencies, it should be properly coordinated. So right now, the interagency cooperation needs to be upped up. Again, don't forget that in internal security operation, the rationale is that the police must come out to say they are overwhelmed before the military can come in. But these days, the military are dragged in. And military about 36 of all the states now. So the military model of training is different from, police training. In the military, we are just trained to kill. We are not trained to maim and all that. The military is trained to kill until you delineate their functions. And if you are bringing them to do internal security operations, the police must be courageous to say we are overwhelmed. If the police has not said they are overwhelmed and you drag military into these internal security calculations without a defined and delineated functions and responsibilities, devoid of joint operational centers, sharing of intelligence, you are going to continue to have this fiasco.
Mr. Ario, sometimes I'm not really a football fan like that, but sometimes I do watch, and I see that there are times that you find that there's a pressure, so much pressure on a particular team that in the process of trying to save, the ball from going into the net, you have the own goal, which for me I would think that this is what has happened. So we have issues of banditry, we have kidnappings, and it's on the rise. Does this mean that, yes, we've talked about the security agencies not being adequate enough to take care of the situation, that the pressure is now at boiling point?
Well, before I will take your question, let me quickly add to what the two speakers said. On this platform, I had identified lack of interagency collaboration and cooperation and the sharing of information as a critical missing element in our security architecture. And I said that for as long as it remains like that, we are not going nowhere. Now, what happened purely is a case of lack of collaboration and cooperation. I'm not a policeman, but I can tell you for free, no police operation, especially of the IRT standard and level, will go into community and not intimidate the necessary people on ground. Police don't work like that. If they are coming from Maiduguri to arrest somebody in Lagos, they have an order of passing down information, keeping them intimidated, so that in case they run into problems, they can quickly call for backup. So that the military didn't know that they were coming for me was in jail.
Okay.
Wait.
Sorry, you will continue your line of thought after this break, please.
Okay.
Stay with us. Welcome back. Mr. Ariyo, you were going to land on your thoughts.
So I was speaking on lack of interagency collaboration and information sharing. This, I will give you a good example. The dirty girls that were taken away at that time, some agency had that they were coming. They kept it to themselves. And of course, those people came and then they took those girls away before there was counteraction that brought them back. It was a classic case that we used then to tell them, look, if you continue this way, we will not win any of these wars. Let me also tell you, you know, when General said the army is trained to kill, I don't disagree. You don't kill in the city, you kill at the war front. That wasn't a war situation. Policemen went covertly to run an operation. They had a success, they were coming back. No matter what, I don't think they will see a military checkpoint with military men in uniform and not recognize them, stop, attend to them.
So what then?
I can tell you, there is the presence of fifth columnists. What I can see here is like people have been paid to go and release that guy. Let me tell you, when the girls were returned, they were not taken to their parents. Excuse me. Wait.
Evidence to that.
No, but let me land. They were not taken to their parents' homes. They were taken to the governor's lodge or somewhere where they were debriefed, and then they went through psychological reorientation before they were released. Assuming the man you saw in handcuffs and leg chain, police handcuffs and leg chain, assuming it was a kidnapped victim, the order is not to ask him to go away, but to take him through the process whereby it will be reorientated, it will be reassured, and then he can go away. But that man walked away from that point, convinced me that nobody was carrying out an operation, and I mean a sinister operation, and he walked away with the restraints, legs and arms. Who released those things? Okay, if they were not released, how easy or how possible was it for him to have gone away? Then they said somebody called that he was being kidnapped. Who could have called? A man in restraint? I don't think the RRT team would have been so silly to have allowed him access to a phone to have called. You see, there are too many questions in all of these things. And let me tell you, it pains when I remember General Salih Ibrahim, former Chief of Army Staff, who said publicly that the army of that time is army of anything goes. The army of today is even worse than that. And I say it without equivocation, I mean, without any fear of reprisal. Otherwise, these things bear common sense. It pains me because I know two of those guys that were murdered mindlessly. People who should be celebrated for their gallantry. And we're talking of a man who is a terror to a whole community, not just a town or a village. So to not be saying that the army is trained to kill, I beg to disagree. Kill where? In the city or at the war front?
All right, Captain Ali, just last year, General T.Y. Danchuma actually went after the military and said the military is not neutral in this war against insurgency. Does this situation justify that statement unequivocally?
It actually puts a measure of concern and light on that claim retrospectively. I want to first and foremost do some damage control here, even though the damage has been done. I don't think the general meant the army is meant to kill. We are meant to defend. Defending can get to certain extreme levels that lives will be involved. For example, on the battlefield, you versus the adversary. But that doesn't make it the rule of thumb, if we could put it that way. It's not the rule of thumb. And talking about possible fifth columnists being in there, doing things to undermine the efforts of the institutions, that in itself puts an onus of responsibility on both parties now, the police and the military, to get that kingpin wherever he is. In fact, if I had my way, by now his face will be everywhere on every poster. We want him. Because doing that will bring about the common ground I want to see towards first bringing inter-agency cooperation and getting them to mend fences and work together. So there's a common factor here now. For the police and for the armed forces, they must bond and smoke this man out wherever he is. It's key, very, very key, or else it will just continue to water these feelings people have, which come naturally with any human mind. Don't forget, this is coming at the heels of certain amount of monies being lost on transit, and people are having all manner of what you call, brainwaves as to what could have happened. There is a committee sitting now working on that. Okay? So in order for us to turn a bad situation to what I call an opportunity, we must leverage on what has happened to ensure that wherever that man is, he has to be fished out. That will begin to build back confidence and debunk some of these things that are already rife in people's minds.
So let's go to Abuja. General Haigbe, whether we like it or not, the confidence of the people in our security bodies and agencies, have always been here, not there, neither here nor there, in terms of, well, do they really protect us? So what do you want to speak to the fact that how we are going to get out of this present situation to ensure that the security architecture in the country is boosted in such a way that the people's confidence will also, increase in the security agencies?
Thank you, Mrs. Otagbe. Let me first of all correct a wrong impression given there at the Lagos studio by my colleague there, Mr. Rio. If you heard me right, I told you that it's not the business of the military to be involved in internal security operations, because the military is trained to kill and not to maim. We kill in the battlefront, and clearly what I said. So when you bring the military out of the concentration to fight in battlefront to the streets, to interact with the civil populace, this is what I said. So I never said, in this case, that the military is right to kill. So please, let's correct that. And Mr. Omar, let me thank you for, attempt to do a damage control, but there was really no damage to control because what I clear was very succinct. Then back to your question, you see, that is why when I started, I said there is need for a holistic security reform. A security reform, first of all, you must know that all the military men, all the armed forces personnel, the police, and other security agencies, their business is to protect the citizenry. And any other ask you has to do has to be secondary, because one thing we always make mistake is that we always look at military-centric approach to security. We are not thinking about the human security. So in any case, people think of physical security as the primacy of security. No. People must be well fed. The welfare, the security of the people is paramount. Put that with me. There is need to be a realistic assessment of the threat in this country. And there should be an appropriate response to that assessment and the threat. That will boost the confidence of the taxpayers, because they pay tax to get protected. They pay tax to get a better living. So when there is a disconnect between these social contracts, what you see is this proliferation of threats, banditry, kidnapping, and so on and so forth. So the government must take a lead in this, because all these things we are talking about must be taken at a strategic level. That is, first and foremost, to make sure the enabling environment is there to thrive, for business to thrive. If this is not done, it will be difficult to reconcile the various security threats now to the development of the country. First and foremost, it must be human-centric. That is the safety and welfare of the citizenry. The security agencies who are tasked to provide security of this citizenry must be also up their game. And they must be well-funded. Let me tell you, you cannot provide security when you are not well-funded. And that's why I said the police need to be well-funded to be able to do their training and all that. And for the military. Let me tell you, in the sub-region alone of West Africa, for instance, in our Lake Chad region, Chad GDP for defense spending is 3.5. Niger is 4.1. Even Cameroon is 2.3. Nigeria is 1.6. So you must take us away from that paradigm shift of budgetary calculations for defense spending. You must start to think out of the box, to think how you fund the military and the police to be able to discharge their functions effectively so that the security of the citizenry will be very well pronounced.
Captain Ali, okay. All right. Captain Ali, let me ask you. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the soldiers involved in this situation, I have not heard that they've been arrested or put in holding or anything, or they're currently being questioned. And we have lost some of the most brilliant of our men in the police. Now, it's an impact on society, but then let's look at the internal impact on the security forces, talking about the police in this case. Would that not discourage other men within the police who might then be feeling, am I even protecting this country? What internal impact do you think this would have? Because you have said something that the guy who the kidnapper his face should be everywhere now. We are not seeing that. Now, we believe that these soldiers should have been held. They're not being held. What's the impact within the police?
The impact itself is daunting. If you asked me, I'll say the impact will widen the schism, further alienate the two, agencies. Within the police force, there's going to be some kind of, I want to call it, silent opprobrium. The reason I say silent opprobrium is given the nature of uniform work is regimented. You don't really come out and protest, but that doesn't mean you are not protesting in there. And there is no greater energy like the compressed one which is kept in there, because when it triggers off, it's... So what do I actually want to recommend, having said this? It's both ways. I want to see not only inter, but intra-agency coordination. And when it comes to inter and intra-agency coordination, we haven't really done well. It's become virtually a culture for these two brothers to always fight. I recall there was one that happened in Lagos. It was horrible. Exactly, when an entire police barrack was taken out and soldiers were singing and dancing while it was happening. It shouldn't be the case. The reason is, for every soldier listening to me now, I'm talking of every soldier regardless rank, you all have the same surname, Nigeria. It's Nigeria Police, Nigeria Army, Nigeria. In fact, let me take it from me. We even have in-laws. There are cross marriages. I'm telling you this. Other than that, anywhere you see a soldier, trust me, or a policeman tomorrow, today, look closely. You're going to see something they have in common on them. It's green, white, green. That color is on every uniform that serves on this Nigerian soil, particularly military and what? Police. Now, what is really the problem then? If you observe from my own data, you don't see the top hierarchy of these two agencies quarrel. In fact, it is the foot soldiers that run amok and do things, then the elders come and put it back.
Okay, so if they don't quarrel at that level, how then is it that the foot soldiers will almost, every other time have this kind of issues?
Because,
see, superiority issues.
Because the inter and intra-agency approach to it is from up down. It needs to be from down up. I want to see enough coordination, correlation, interaction. I mean, if a policeman can marry a soldier and a soldier can do that vice versa, then we need to marry up these troops. we need to marry up these foot soldiers. And once we marry them up, we cement it by ensuring where there are joint operations.
So, but it also has to come from the top.
No, 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 no. It has to come to from the top, but we have to see it visibly at the bottom. Look, paying courtesy call to my police commissioner colleague, we shake hands, have coffee, and promise each other that we're going to cooperate. It doesn't water down to that foot soldier. When they meet each other, it used to remind me of when I was in secondary school when we play football matches and my team in my school meets the other team. You see some hairs bristling. I want to see fora, I want to see platforms, I want to see opportunities where the lower ranks, the foot soldiers, are made to bond. And that can be cemented when their bond becomes a function of results they have to jointly achieve.
We are going to wind, down this segment now, but Major General Ezekaigwe said something earlier about funding, and you chuckled at the mention of it. Is it just about the funding? Because we know that if we check every budget, you see that defense and security, takes a very large chunk. So is it about funding or about effective use of what we have?
You see, it pains me that I'm going to now counter General again. When he talked of funding, we just had some heads of Army and Air Force tried by EFCC, taken to court by EFCC, and humongous sums of money were retrieved from them. I'm not saying what the world doesn't know. So for me, it can't be about funding. We just heard that some soldiers were asked to escort some 600 million naira physical cash to somewhere and they escaped with it. I think we should be thinking of effective and maximum now, optimal funds utilization, whereby whatever is given is well deployed. We can never have a situation where they will say they have excess fund or adequate fund. Whatever is given, maximize its use, we will have results.
General Ezekaigwe, your closing comments, please.
Yes, well, you see, when it comes to issues like this, we must not be emotive. We want to see that, because truth has, three passages they have to go through. First of all, it must be bold, and sometimes that truth is ridiculed until it's self-evident. You see, the question of corruption in among some services that are being tried and all that does not remove the need for funding of the military. And the problem we have always had is that if one or two persons commit an offense, doesn't mean that the whole institution is run down. And I can also tell you, I wanted you to contradict me on the statistics that I brought out about funding of military in all those countries that surround us. That a few people have mismanaged the fund, they should be made to pay the price for what they did. So that does not remove the need for funding of the military. And two, you see, it is very, very wrong to conclude on investigation that's just going on. We should not be speculative. The question of already condemning, one aspect of it does not matter. These are two sister agencies that are tasked to defend this country. So if there is a gap in communication, if there is something that has happened, we should first of all see how to make sure it doesn't happen again, not trading blames. Because it's speculation by saying the police has done this wrong or the army has not done this well. We cannot justify it until the report is submitted. So we should not be emotive, and this is why I call for, the removal of military hangover from our public relations department. The military, as a matter of fact, and even the police, must separate the office of the public relations officer and that of their spokesman. Because public relations officers may not be the right people to speak for their services. Because what is going on now, if it's not well handled, a situation where, there will be so much hostilities between the two forces may come in. So we now please ask the leadership of the various agencies to calm the temper of their various spokesmen, to calm the temper of the troops, and to make sure that this confidence that has been so broken will be mended immediately so that we all fight together for the common destiny of this nation.
Thank you so much, General Cecil Ezekaigwe, security expert. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. Mr. Olade Areyo, thank you for being here. And Captain Umar Ali, thank you also for being here. We really don't want our security agencies to be at loggerheads. We want peace, because when there's peace from their end, then, you know, it can permeate the country. Thank you for coming.
Most welcome.
So we take a very quick break, and Sunrise will be back in a moment.